YouTube, what's good? We're back in this thing. Today we're going to be going over this Mavi 1000 Miles music video directed by Lonewolf. Just drawing and sketching effect that he does on the paper thermal effect that I kind of already went over. If you haven't watched that video, I'd recommend watching it before this one. I'll have a card pop up. It's not super necessary, but it'll definitely help you understand the concept of the effect a little bit more. I'll be going over it very briefly in this, so you might be able to learn from this one. But if you don't fully get it, just go click the link. I'll have it in the description as well, and you'll be able to follow along really easily. The video is directed and edited by Lonewolf. I'll have his link below. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with him. I can tell Lonewolf spent a lot of time on this project. You know, he printed out frame by frame, drew all over this stuff, and it looks really, really good. And I would say if you want the best result, I would recommend going through and actually printing out each frame and drawing all over it, making it your own. But obviously, a lot of people don't have the time to do that, and I try to get as close to the look as possible with keeping it pretty realistic, but also not making you spend a lot of time. So obviously my version is going to be digital, and the versions he did on the actual project are analog, meaning that he actually, you know, printed it out, did all the stuff physically, and then rescanned it back over to his computer. For our case, that's not necessary. We're going to be taking screenshots, putting them into Photoshop, drawing on them, and then bringing them back into Premiere. If you're new here and you're not subscribed, I'd recommend subscribing because I do a lot of music video effect tutorials kind of similar to this. Starting to do some vlogs. I do a lot of stuff on Twitch reacting to your music videos. So if you're interested in any of that, all this stuff will be linked below. It's free to subscribe. I'm going for 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so it is greatly appreciated. And if you have anyone that you think would be interested in the channel, feel free to share it with them. With that being said, let's go for 1,000 likes on this video, 100 comments. It really does mean a lot. It takes just a few seconds from you guys' time, but it really, really helps me as a content creator, pushing my work to other people that want to see it, as well as it makes it easier for me to make content in the future. I know it's annoying me asking for it all the time, but it really does mean a lot. So if you had a second. If you want to support the channel even more, you can go to briandelmata.com and check out my texture pack as well as my thermal pack. We're actually going to be using both of them in this video. It's the best way you can support me as a creator as well as get something in return. It helps you save time while editing so you don't have to print out each frame, rip the paper, scan it back over, as well as the thermal pack has 25 presets with over 100 different looks. So it has a bunch of different thermal looks, drag and drop. It's really easy to use. I have tutorials on both of them. I'll have playlists linked below. But yeah, that's enough talking. Let's get into the video. Now that we're in Premiere, you just got to find a clip that you want the effect to take place on. I'm going to go ahead and I already selected out this spot to have the effect take place. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go to effects, type in posterize time, drag that onto your clip. I already went over this part in a tutorial that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I'll have it linked below. So I'm going to just really briefly touch on this. Basically, the number you input into here will divide the frame rate of the clip you have by that number. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 8. And what that's going to do is make the frames change every 3 frames. You can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the kind of shutter, low shutter effect that you can add onto it. As well as I'm going to go ahead and go to my presets, go to my preset thermal pack, and go ahead and drag on a few of them until I find something I like. Dark rainbow. I think I'm going to use invert thermal. I really like the way this one looks. So you can see that it changes every 3 frames. And basically what I'm going to do is drag the paper rips that I already have from the tutorial that we did before. So basically what it is it's my black sheet 1 from my texture pack, put on the screen blending mode and just lasting 3 frames and shifting every 3 frames. Just a little bit of its position and scale. So it kind of has a little bit of the shake. You can see it looks pretty cool. But that right there is basically what we got to in the last tutorial. And now I'm going to be showing you guys how to draw on this and transfer it between Photoshop and Premiere really easily, actually. So what you're going to go ahead and do is just go in and out. So click I on your keyboard and then out on your keyboard. So O to where it ends. And then I just always drag it to the right frame, right where it ends. Then I'm going to go ahead and just file. You can export it as MP4. Let me go ahead and find somewhere to save it and just name this something, no drawing. The next step is to go ahead and go into Photoshop, click open, and then locate where you save that MP4 file. Then once you find that, go ahead and click open. And it should by default open up this timeline down at the bottom, but if it doesn't, you can go ahead and go to window and just make sure timeline selected. And you can see now we have our clip playing. Looks pretty clean. And then what I go ahead and do is down here in the bottom right, go ahead and click new layer. My camera might be hiding it, but it's the plus button if I forget to edit it out. It's the plus button right next to the garbage can. You could also just go up here if you can't find it, go to new and then click new layer. And it should create the same thing. And then it might have the layer all the way to the right, so just find that and drag it over your clip. I'm gonna go ahead and do the hard part right now, which is going 1, 2, 3. Every 3 frames where it switches, you should just go ahead and click the snip tool right here. Go 1, 2, 3. Make sure you're selected on the right layer. Snip it 1, 2, 3. snippet 1, 2, 3, and basically just do this all the way through. It's the most annoying part of the process, but it's the easiest way I found of drawing and transferring it back over to Premiere. Then I just go all the way to the beginning, make sure you're selected on the right layer. You can click down here to make sure you're selected, and then go to a brush that you find that you like. I'm going to be using the Mega Pack. I'll have it linked in the description. It's free for all Adobe users. I'm going to be using the Mega Pack. Then under drawing box, go down to Shady Graphite. You don't have to use this one. This is one I'm using, so if you want to follow along, you can. I'd recommend playing with different brushes. You can get some really cool looks. I'll just go over a few things that you can do, and then we'll go into what I'm just going to do for the tutorial. So some things you can do is you can choose a color that's like in the thermal that you think looks cool. Maybe, for example, over here, this mint color, and you could just make sure you're selected on the right layer. So scroll down here, make sure you're selected on the layer, and if you wanted to, you could bump up the size of the brush. I do that by using the left and right brackets, and if you don't for some reason see the size of your brush, go ahead and click caps lock. It's probably because your caps lock's on, and you can brush over here, you can fill it out, and it has a cool look. You can even play with some blending modes if you like something like that. You can play around with the flow. Maybe you didn't want it to be that much, so I'm gonna go ahead and just Control Z all the way through. And maybe if you brought the flow down or something, you could play with whatever. And if you want it to look a little bit better, I recommend stacking some parts where like it's more opaque and then some parts where it's like less. That looks pretty cool. You can go even to filter, noise, add some noise in. Just play around with the roughness of it. I think that looks pretty cool. You could go through the whole time, do this overlay all the way through. And if you don't change anything, it should just bring up the same noise every single time. So you can see, you can go ahead and draw through. This one's a pretty cool effect. I'm gonna go ahead and just do this really quick for you guys. Basically just do this every single frame. Something I forgot to mention is you can change the size of the brush too to get like different looks. You can like change it depending on where you're brushing in. I'm gonna do this really quick because this isn't the one I really wanna focus on. I think it's pretty simple and you guys probably understand, but I just wanna have an example of what it looks like for you guys. And another reason we do it on a layer above and not just the actual clip is because if you ever wanted to go through and change something, you wouldn't have to, you can go ahead and just change the paintbrush itself. So say, for example, you wanted to like change the color of the brush later on, you can go and add hue and saturation to it and then just drag the color through, or you could add the saturation in, you could take the saturation out, really whatever. So that's why I always do it on a separate layer instead of just the actual video clip. But if for some reason you think you're not gonna wanna change anything, you can go ahead and skip the step of duplicating all these layers. I always recommend it this way though. I think it doesn't really add much time to it and you just get a better overall product. And then once you've gone ahead and done it to all the layers, you can go ahead and play it, see what it looks like for you. I think it looks pretty cool actually. If you wanted to, you could go through now and kind of change some of the blending modes or whatever. Maybe you get a cooler look doing something like color burn. Looks pretty cool for me. You could just drag through all the blending modes and it should play them up on the screen. I think that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and just stick with the normal, but just an idea. I always like giving you guys ideas for what to do. And then some cool things you can do is the image adjustments, go through any of these. I think gradient maps are really cool. If you have some gradient maps, you can play with some that look cool. You know, just try to find ones that kind of match the overall theme of yours. Honestly, any of these are looking really cool over our clips here. And then if you do decide to do that, it might get a little annoying. You have to go frame by frame, kind of making sure that you use the same one. So I'd recommend doing it as you go, but it is a good way to like test out what it looks like, just having it like a full product done. And then always just make sure you're using the same one or you know which one you're using. I'm just going through and adding the gradient maps back on. That's why I always like playing with different just settings once you have your effect down, because you can get some really cool looks like just messing around with some settings. So I'd recommend just playing around with stuff. I think this one's like low-key kind of the sauce. So if you haven't liked the video, go ahead and do that, because I really did just find something here. Obviously gradient maps are known and whatever, but yeah, this use of them is really cool, I think. And then when you want to go ahead and export it, you can go down here to the bottom left. You should be able to see this little like arrow thing. Click that, go to where you want to render it. You can select your folder and then just make sure the size for it is the same size that you had in Premiere Pro. So whatever your composition settings in Premiere Pro are, just go ahead and do that. For my case, it's 1920 by 1080, and then just make sure to match the frame rate as well. So 24 frames per second, click render. It's gonna do these little dots for a second, and then it should have a rendering bar. And then I'm gonna go ahead and import both of those into Premiere just to show you what these look like. Basically, now you can go ahead and either delete those layers that you had there or just have it go over. And I rendered a version with the green inversion with the gradient map just to show you guys what each one looks like. So I'm going to show you the green one first. Sometimes it like renders a frame wrong or whatever, so you might just have to cut it. It's not that big of a deal because most of the time this isn't going to be a performance scene anyways. So this is what the green one looks like. I think that's a pretty cool look. And then the one with the gradient map, also a pretty cool look. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more drawing that you can do because I think this is pretty simplistic. I just wanted to show you some ideas. Going back into Photoshop here, go ahead and do that layer thing again. So you have all the layers set up. I think this one's a little bit more creative you can get with. And then I'm actually going to be using the same brush. I'm just going to use a lot smaller of a size. Find something that I like. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to turn up the flow just a little bit, maybe to something like 12. And if you have a hard time following the lines of your subject or whatever, you can turn up the smoothing. What it's going to do is it'll give it a little bit smoother of a line, and it's not going to pick up the jitters in your mouse as much. For this case, I'm going to just go ahead and pick white here so you can see a little better. And I'm just going to go ahead and outline our subject here. I think this looks pretty cool. You can always play around with the flow. I kind of just swipe back and forth over and over again so you can see a little bit more. I think I'm actually going to turn up the flow to like 20 though. And then I'm going to just doodle kind of whatever you really want on these. Give it just a cool look. And then go frame by frame and kind of, I'd always recommend doing something similar to the last frame. So if you wanted it to change, like if you wanted his smile to turn into a frown or something, I would slowly do that. I wouldn't just do one frame smile, one frame frown. I think I'm just going to continuously do this smile thing and then maybe just draw here, draw a little line. And the great thing about this is you don't have to be super precise. You can spend as much time or as little time as you want on these. I'm going to go really fast because I've already done the effect like twice now. Really, basically, me spending more time on this isn't going to teach you guys how to doodle better. It's just going to give you a better example. So I'm just going to go through, give you some ideas here. Maybe start filling up his head a little bit. And then the next frame I go a little higher, and the frame after that go even higher. So this time I'm just filling up a little bit more. Maybe we'll do like 3 frames of the head filling. And if you really wanted to match the last frame, you could like bring this in to kind of see where you're at. Obviously, if the subject moves a little bit more, you won't be able to match it perfectly, but you can kind of just see what you were doing last frame. And then this time I'm going to fill up the head all the way. And then you can always follow the same rules with the filter. You can add, I mean, obviously you can do any color you want. You can add the noise. I think the noise looks pretty cool in some cases. Maybe for this one, I would do a little bit less or something. But yeah, I'm just going to skip that for now. Always just ideas. I'm trying to show you guys what you can do with these. And then maybe this time bump up the scale of the brush a little bit and give them stripes or something. Just different ideas and patterns you can do to give it a little bit more interesting of a look. Then maybe this time go like opposite. Obviously, I'm not spending too much time on this. It'll probably look a little rough once we get done. That's the great thing about animating. You can just spend as much time as you want or as little. Like I said, like this is only realistically in the music video for a few seconds. This effect itself is a little bit more time consuming, but I think it's a really cool look that I think a lot of clients would be happy with, because this is some like unique stuff that you don't really see people spend time to do. And I think that really shows when you actually do it in a video yourself. Maybe this time we could just do dots everywhere. Like I was saying, you could do patterns, dots, fill it all the way in, have the outline kind of like follow, so you could like have it only a third and then like slowly grow around him. There's really, I know I'm saying a lot, but just endless stuff you can do with the designing part. And this time just have the dots in different places. You don't even really have to try because obviously you're not gonna be able to get them in the same spot. For me, I was just keeping the outline size the same thing the whole way through just to make it a little bit more consistent. And that one I kind of just did like that, where I lost the eyes. So now if you were to play this, you could see what happens. I think maybe I wouldn't, if it was like my project, I wouldn't do like all the different variety in one. I was just kind of showing you different examples, but it is a pretty cool effect that is going to just show up for a few seconds. So then again, just make sure you have all the same settings. Render that out and then import it into Premiere. Then I can show you what that looks like next to some clips. That's a super sick effect, honestly. If you spend more time doing some, you could add some blur to different spots. You can add grain, just different things that would make it look a little bit more realistic. You could add the gradient maps, all that different stuff. I would just play around with some of the settings. You can get some really cool looks. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. If you made it all the way to the end, I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much. If you haven't liked, comment, and subscribed already, go ahead and do that. It really does help push my content to other people. And if you ended up getting the thermal pack or paper pack because of this, thank you again. The support actually means so much. Thank you. And I'm excited to see what you guys come up with using these effects. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys in this one.